You're listening to the Colts Blue Zone Podcast with Mike Chappell and Dave Griffiths.
Hello and welcome to the Colts Blue Zone Podcast. I'm Matt Adams with a game recap. This week, the Colts finding another way to lose, 30-20 this week to the Buffalo Bills. That's a good Buffalo team. And the Colts actually had a lead in this one in the first half somehow against all logic and reason. But the end result, pretty much what we've seen lately. Joe Flacco comes to the game as the starter, and his first pass after the Colts defense forces a punt, his first pass is an interception that gets returned for a touchdown, and honestly didn't get much better there from the offense. Their very next drive ended up with an interception as well. Late in the fourth quarter, when the Colts were still trying to hang in there, Flacco threw one down for Alec Pierce, threw too high. That one got intercepted, and that led to a touchdown for the Bills. And, you know, it was just that kind of game. And, you know, I understood earlier in the season what the Colts were trying to accomplish when Shane Steichen named Joe Flacco the starting quarterback for the Colts. They're thinking we've got a decent team. We've got a defense that is good enough. And if we had more consistent quarterback play, we can win some games and find our way into the playoffs. And that still could be the case, although I don't think that it is anymore. I think that my view of this team had been an optimistic, maybe 10-7, 9-8 team that squeaks in with that last wild card spot. I'm not even sure that this team's capable of doing that right now unless something major changes. But the reason that you put Joe Flacco in is it's going to be a steadying presence for the offense. He's going to have seen everything that a defense can give you. He's not going to make mistakes. He's going to play at a high enough level to win games for you. And he is not playing at that level right now. He's not playing that level at all. And the 4 turnovers, and you can also add a turnover on downs there on a 4th and 1 in which, you know, your veteran quarterback took a sack when you couldn't afford to. When you look at that and you see your 39-year-old quarterback, soon to be 40, playing like this, and you ask yourself, so it's acceptable for these mistakes when it's Joe Flacco, the veteran quarterback who's seen everything, but it's not acceptable for your 22-year-old quarterback who has not seen everything to make these kinds of mistakes. And I know that Steichen's not going to come out in the press conference after the game and say, hey, listen, Joe had a rough game. We're going to go back to Richardson. He's just simply not going to do that. That may be in the back of his mind, or it may not be. It may be that he really is convinced that it's time to just stick with Flacco. Stick with Flacco. Things will be fine. But quickly, you know, the Colts got some breaks this week as far as the schedule is concerned for other teams. And the results, I guess, not really the schedule, but the results for some other teams. You know, they're kind of keeping an eye on Cincinnati and Buffalo and Denver for that final spot. And both those teams, you know, got losses this week. Kind of gutting losses, especially for the Broncos. Blocked field goal at the end. But, you know, so maybe the Colts are still in this thing. Again, I've got, unless there's a real turnaround in the next week or two, they did have a pretty stiff part of their schedule, and they're not out of it yet. They've got to go to the Jets next week. That's been a pretty disappointing team. So, you know, maybe the Colts can come away with a W there, but then it's the Lions, and that Lions team is really, really good. Even when they're really, really bad, as they were on Sunday Night Football against the Texans, you know, they managed to win that one. 5 interceptions from Jared Goff in that game. They still managed to win. And that's the other thing, too. The Colts, you know, they have to zero in on that 7th wild card spot because they probably don't have a chance to win the division anymore. But the Texans lost for the last 2 weeks. The Colts had a chance to be in this thing, right? And make up some ground, at least one game with the Texans. They could have done it both weeks, and they didn't do that. So they'll be looking at that wild card if they get in. We'll just have to see. But clearly, you know, when Gardner Minshew was playing last year, And we have said many, many things, both positive and negative, about Gardner when he was quarterback of the Colts. But that offense did function. Like, they had some bad games. I especially remember the Atlanta game when Michael Pittman Jr. was out. But that offense functioned. Like, it was pretty consistent. They were able to move the ball and score points. Not at will, not all the time, but it didn't look broken. And right now, it doesn't matter whether Richardson's back there. It doesn't matter whether Flacco is out there. This Colts offense just looks broken. They have no flow. They have zero consistency. And I know that Michael Pittman Jr. being out this week is not something that's going to help your offense. But I would also argue that back injuries and now that finger injury that he had last week that have hobbled Pittman have made him less effective. So the offense has effectively had to operate without Pittman as a real viable threat for several weeks now. And so it's not that it's not going to change anything or it's not going to change their game plan. Yes, not having Pittman in there will change the game plan, but the offense just does not look good. And, you know, it's got to be an embarrassment for Shane Steichen. He's this guy, all ball, always talks about football. All he thinks about is football. He dreams in X's and O's. Yet the offense that he has designed is just not functioning. And yes, Jonathan Taylor had a great first half against Buffalo, but there was nothing there in the second half. Now, that's not Jonathan Taylor's fault. That's scheme changes. That's, Buffalo deciding to key in on things a little bit more. But he could not find any running room in that second half. And so it was all on Flacco's shoulders. And his shoulders just cannot bear it. And the result is a 30-20 loss to the Bills and a 4-6 football team. All right. Let's see. Did we have any positives? Let's look at some positives. We've kind of been waiting for a game from A.D. Mitchell to, show. I think we all have seen his separation ability, and we've seen, he made that a really nice toe tap last week in that game. This week, 6 catches for 71 yards on 6 targets. He seemed to be where he needed to be when he needed to be there. Made a couple of nice route adjustments on balls that Flacco threw. And I thought A.D. Mitchell had a really nice game. Was it the most impressive offensive performance I've ever seen by a wide receiver? Absolutely not. But certainly some positive indications that you can find a role for this guy in the offense. Alec Pierce, 4 catches, 81 yards. He had a touchdown late where he went up and got it very close to when the clock was expiring. It really didn't even matter at that point. The Colts were down 30-13, but hey, 30-20 sounds better than 30-13. I suppose it doesn't matter when you score, right? Just another quietly nice game for Alec Pierce, although the stats are a little more impressive this week. Probably the one throw that Flacco would like to have back, or maybe a jump that Pierce would like to have back, was when Flacco tried to hit him in the fourth quarter and overshot him. And Pierce got his hands on it, but that ball was up there. It was up there. The announcer seemed to suggest that perhaps Pierce had mistimed his jump. I just think the ball was too tall for him. I don't think it got there in a place where he could catch it. And then he did get his fingertips on it, but he couldn't quite get control of it. And then that was a tipped ball that got intercepted by the defense. Josh Downs, 7 catches for 72 yards, 10 targets. Who does Joe Flacco like to throw to? That would be Josh Downs. I know that. You know that. The Buffalo Bills know that. They knew it on the first play of the game, in which that ball was intercepted and returned for a touchdown. Tyler Goodson, a couple catches. He did have a nice TD grab, but then later in the game, he got free on a little route on the sideline and just couldn't corral that one. Just completely dropped it. On the defensive side of things, Nick Cross, 12 tackles. Zaire Franklin, 9 tackles. E.J. Speed had an interception. Kenny Moore, 7 tackles. Just a beautiful interception from Kenny Moore. And if you listen to Kenny Moore after the game, he was pretty downtrodden about the team's preparation and kind of the way that they were executing out on the field in recent weeks. And, Kenny is a tremendous player. Whether you call him an outside cornerback, whether you call him a slot corner or a nickel, whatever you want to call it, Kenny Moore comes, he shows up, he does the work, and he makes plays for this Colts defense, and he made a really key play there. If you're interested in the McDonald's sack offer, in which if you spend $1 in the McDonald's app, then you get 10 chicken McNuggets for free, have no fear. You'll be able to cash in this week because Kwity Paye and Grover Stewart each had a sack this week for the Colts. They weren't like, 5 or 7 yard losses. It was just short of the line to gain, but it still counts, especially when it comes to free chicken McNuggets. And overall, the defense played pretty well, and this is a good Buffalo team. Not quite as many weapons as they're used to having. They had some guys out this week, too, that probably didn't help. But, Josh Allen's a tremendous quarterback. He had not a great game, a good enough game for the Bills. And just his ability to escape in the pocket and deliver the ball downfield is just a tremendous asset for any football team. And the Colts did a pretty good job. I mean, they did not allow Allen to have a touchdown pass this week. He had not thrown a ton of interceptions this season either. The Colts got to him twice this week with E.J. Speed and Kenny Moore picking off some throws from Allen. And it didn't offset the 4 turnovers that the Colts had, but it did help, kind of keep this thing close. I mean, again, at one point the Colts led this game 13-10. Which is kind of mind-boggling when you saw how this game started for Indianapolis. But the defense played well enough. But then, at the end of there's always an asterisk with this team. Always a but then. At the end of the half, the Colts gave up like a 34-yard completion, and then that set up a touchdown from the Bills late. Then the offense comes out, predictably does nothing, gives the ball back to Buffalo, and the Bills get another long pass play, a 44-yard pass play, and that sets up a field goal. So that 13-10 lead suddenly became a 20-13 deficit right before halftime. And, that is just kind of typical of this Colts team. They play well enough, but it's only to a point. And that lead turned into a deficit real quick, like on Indianapolis. And then the Colts only got that late score in the fourth quarter as time was expiring, and it really was a garbage time touchdown. But it does sound like, for now, the Colts are going to stick with Joe Flacco. I've already delivered my thoughts on that. We'll take a closer look at Flacco's performance here. But first, let's hear from head coach Shane Steichen.
Just injuries. Bernie had a knee. Didn't rule him out, but he left the game with a knee. Overall, disappointing, obviously. Can't, turn the ball over. You turn the ball over like that, it's going to be hard to win football games. I thought our defense played, pretty darn good, kept us in it, but obviously wasn't good enough to get it done today.
Shane, did you consider going to Richardson at all?
I didn't, right there. Until I say otherwise, right now, Joe's our guy right now.
Shane, he's had 6 turnovers last 2 weeks, 1 and 3 with him at the start of the season. Why is he still the guy?
Obviously, just a guy that's a veteran guy. Obviously, we've had 2 games that that he'd like to have back, but we'll keep battling through it and see where it goes.
There was some scattered boos throughout the game. What's your reaction to the?
Yeah, we got to give him something to cheer about. Obviously, when you're not moving the ball, we got to be better. We got to go back and freaking get it cleaned up. We've got a lot of football left. Obviously, got a big one coming up against the Jets. So we get it cleaned up tomorrow, come back into work, and that's what we got to do.
Do you believe Joe still give you the best chance to win?
Yeah, right now.
And I guess, again, why is that?
Just his veteran leadership that he brings to our football team.
The last 4th and 2, why did you decide to go for it there?
Yeah, I felt good about it right there, going for it, tried to get the points. Obviously, it didn't work out. It was 13-20 right there, tried to get the game tied there in that situation instead of taking the field goal right there. Obviously, didn't convert it.
Joe's last 3 starts include your 2 lowest yardage outcomes of the season, and then today's 4 turnovers. So, at what point do you reassess if it's about trying to win right now?
Yeah, I think we look at everything every week. Right now I'll go back and look at the tape, but right now Joe's our guy.
You did say that you made this move in the interest of winning. He's 1 and 3 as a starter.
Yeah.
Does that not give you pause?
I understand. Like I said, I'm going to go back and look at everything, but right now that's where I'm at with it.
Offensively, it feels like last year you guys were able to find some answers in tough situations. Has that been harder this year? So why?
Yeah, we got to get going a little bit. We have our moments. Like I said, we turn the ball over, and it's hard to win when you lose the turnover battle. So we haven't done a good job of that, and that's going to be a big point of emphasis going forward. We talk about it every week, preach it, but we got to do better at it for sure.
Is there anything Anthony can do in the locker room or in practice to make you reevaluate?
Yeah, he's going through that process every week. Preparing like the starter, going through his process, getting his reps. Out there on the practice field. We go from there.
Yes, I think a 7-point game until like 10 minutes left.
Yeah.
You did. I think there were 4 carries. I think in that stretch in the second half. Just what was the thought process there? And situational? Or?
Yeah, situationally, we're always looking at stuff. Obviously, 1st and 10 stuff. What they are doing defensively, trying to counter that stuff. Give them credit. Shoot, it's a good football team, but we have to be better.
Do you feel like you're putting too much pressure on the defense as an entire team? Or?
Yeah, I think we got to score points offensively going forward. That's the biggest thing. We got to score points. We got to move the football. We can't turn it over.
What's the most frustrating part about a loss like this?
I think it's tough because our guys are fighting like crazy. You know what I mean? You're in the game all the way toward the end. Obviously, we got to get the ball rolling in the right direction offensively. Starts with myself, and we got to get that thing cleaned up.
You said that you thought the defense played pretty well. Maybe you don't always hear that they give up 30 points. So is that just they played well and Josh Allen had some precision?
Yeah, they got the turnovers. Obviously, we had a few where he scrambled around on some big plays there. Which we know he's going to make plays. He's a hell of a football player, but I thought those guys were gritty for a good chunk of the game for sure. There's no doubt.
How's it Jonathan Taylor rolling early? Did
Yeah.
they shift defense, or what made it a little harder to do that?
They started bringing some pressures and stuff, some run stunts things, but we'll go back and look at it. Obviously JT, he had some big runs early, popped the big one there to start the game down the boundary. Tried to come back to that one again. So we'll keep looking at it, keep looking at the schemes, and keep going from there.
Your team has been pretty resilient in every game up to this point. How do you sell them on this playing, like I said, quarterback when it's looked like this the last few weeks?
I think you got to keep believing. It's never about one guy, man. It's the ultimate team game. You're going to go through adversity in football season. That's how you come through the adversity. You know what I mean? You got to go back to work, be professionals, come in every single day with the right mindset to get better. And that's what we got to do as professionals, and we got to go get better.
Now that you've seen this game from AD, does it allow you to kind of broaden things for him and his role moving forward?
Yeah, no, he did a really nice job today. Obviously, made some big-time catches there. He was on point, good routes, made big-time catches. So, yeah, we'll keep looking at that stuff.
That was Indianapolis Colts head coach Shane Steichen after the Colts' 30-20 loss to the Buffalo Bills. It drops them again to 4-6 on the season. And he says he's sticking with Flacco for right now, but as I argued earlier in the podcast they should probably go back to Richardson. If this is the kind of effort, and not so much effort, but if this is the kind of result that you're going to get as the Indianapolis Colts with Joe Flacco at quarterback, then just play Richardson. Richardson can go into the game, turn the ball over 4 times. He might pick up a 4th and 1 with his legs. He might not take a sack on 4th and 1. Then again, he also might, because we've seen that as well. But it's just interesting to me how the organization seems to be giving Joe Flacco a pass for some of these turnovers when, Richardson didn't look very good in that Texans game, and they lost that one, and then he loses his starting job. And at that time, I understood the move at that time. I did. You can call me a flip-flopper or what have you. But I did say against the Texans that the Colts were just competent quarterback play away from winning that game. And I think the Colts probably thought the same thing too. So they thought if they go to Flacco, we get the same type of effort that we get now. We get better offensive efficiency, and then we can string together some wins. Well, the problem is, I guess the thing is, it wasn't just Richardson. It is just an inefficient offense that cannot consistently pick up 3rd downs. They cannot consistently get themselves in 3rd and manageable situations. And when they do, they can't convert. So you end up with a lot of 3 and outs. And it's just, it's endemic for some reason to how this offense is playing this year. All right, from the stat line perspective, Flacco, 26 of 35, 272 yards, 2 touchdowns. He had the 3 interceptions. As I mentioned earlier, he opened the game with a pick 6. Colts defense does a great job. They hold down the Bills. They force a punt on the first drive of the game. They do enough to force a punt there. And then the Colts just, hand the Bills 7 points right on the first play. And that was tough. I guess he didn't see the defender. He was expecting something different. I don't know exactly what happened there. Then on the very next drive for the Colts, Flacco got rushed on a screen pass, and he tried to dump it off to the running back. I think it was Taylor in this case, and it got intercepted by Buffalo. And it just the worst start you could probably imagine. But I will say, again, the Colts did lead 13-10 somehow at one point in this game, and it's mostly because they were able to get some stops and some turnovers on the defensive side of things. The thing that really kind of got me about Flacco was probably the 4th and 1 play. The Colts were there within field goal range. They paid a lot of money to Matt Gay. I know he's not been Mr. Consistency this season, but they paid a lot of money to Matt Gay to be able to come out there, hit long kicks, put points on the board. And they had a chance to go ahead and do that. Instead, they would decide to go on 4th and 1, which, again, there's nothing wrong with it for going for it on 4th and 1. I believe they had gotten stuffed on a run play right before then. And so Flacco comes up to the line of scrimmage, makes some adjustments. I don't know if he audibled the play or called a different player or what have you. Made some adjustments there at the line, and then gets the ball, pump fakes, realizes there is no one open, and takes a sack. And that led to a field goal for the Bills. So that's a net loss on yardage and a net loss on points for the Colts there. And, we were killing Anthony Richardson a few weeks ago for a very similar type of play. Not able to get the ball off, taking a sack in a situation in which he could not afford to. And, but with Flacco, it's okay. It's fine. That's no problem. We'll get him next time. And I don't understand it. Then later in that quarter, he threw high to Alec Pierce, and that was the one that bounced off his hands, went for an interception, and that was really the score that allowed Buffalo to clinch the game. Indianapolis, despite their offensive struggles, the defense gave up some chunk plays here and there, but they were playing well enough, holding the Bills to field goals at times in order to stay in this game. And if the Colts had been a little bit more efficient in the red zone or when they got into scoring position, then they could have won this game. But they weren't. They had the turnovers. I didn't even mention the time that Flacco coughed up the ball and fumbled it. So that was his 4th turnover. That makes 4 turnovers for the game for Flacco. So just a rough one. This team has become pretty difficult to watch in recent weeks. I mean, I'll still be there. I'll still be watching them. I'm going to be hoping that they're going to be better, that perhaps maybe they could get a couple of defensive touchdowns, and maybe that'll take some of the pressure off the offense because it's just not looking good there. Flacco's a veteran. Will he be the starting quarterback this week against New York? I don't know. I think the Indianapolis fan base, from what I'm hearing, tends to think, maybe the switch to Flacco originally might not have been a bad idea, but when we've seen what we've gotten since that's happened, if it's going to be mistakes and inconsistent offensive football, then just give the ball to Anthony Richardson, let him continue his development, and go from there. All right, let's hear from the veteran, Joe Flacco.
Just remember the pick six, particularly what you may have seen or not seen there.
Yeah, we had game plan something, we were trying to get it, and just made a bad decision.
Why do you think it's, looked this stagnant on offense the last couple of weeks?
Well, today, it was just turnovers mostly. There was times where we could kind of get going, and then we turned the ball over. So.
No, what was that? Were they bad decisions on your part? Do you think generally, or I guess there was one that was an overthrow, or just?
No, I think
what do you think?
The first one was a bad decision, and after that, no. But stuff happens sometimes. Maybe a bad throw. I'd like to see it. A couple of those things, but the first one was an awful decision. Yep.
On
the fourth down play, again, you kind of held that ball for a while. Just did you not get, I guess, the defense you were expecting, or what kind of went into that?
No, yeah. Listen, they did a good job covering everything up and then kind of passing things off, and it's went through the progression and then kind of tried to buy some time and just didn't work out.
Joe, how do you turn the tide offensively moving forward after the past 2 games?
Well, it's tough. I mean, the toughest thing about not playing well is just your mentality, and having to deal with, stand tall and deal with the fact that you're not playing well. And the best way to do that is just go back to work. We have the ability to do what we want. We're just making too many mistakes. And when you do get into a little rut like this, then yeah, it can be tough mentally. But you got to just do all you can to kind of put that aside and go do your job.
Joe, you've been in it a long time, and when quarterbacks struggle sometimes, I mean, they change quarterbacks. Were you surprised second half they didn't go to Anthony, or was that never in your mind? You never let that
No,
happen?
I'm just out there playing, and that's my job on Sundays, is to just go out there and play and continue to be optimistic that we can make the most of this, make the most of the chance. I mean, look, our defense kept us in that game for most of the day. They got some turnovers themselves, and most of the time there it was, within a one score, within a 2-score game. So,
Joe, when there were some boos from the Lucas Oil crowd, you've obviously been around long enough to hear some stuff. But what's your reaction when the crowd?
Yeah, listen, this is a humbling game. This league is tough. You're going to have to deal with, things like that from time to time. It's unfortunate. You don't want to put yourself in that situation, but, we can only look at ourselves. I can only look at myself in terms of why that's happening, and, it is what it is.
Joe, Shane shows some faith in you, obviously, making this change, and, it's a big decision. You feel pressure to come through, I'm sure. If you fall a little short, do you feel like that puts him in a tough spot at all, or is that something you just don't have to think about?
Listen, I don't think we're thinking about putting each other in, putting anybody in that locker room is thinking about putting each other in tough spots. You do want to go out there and play well for all of those guys in that locker room and all the coaches and everything like that. I think everybody wants to do that every week. That's what we're out there doing, is playing for the guy next to us. So, when you're not able to come through on that, it doesn't feel, it's a bad feeling. That's part of it, is being able to put that weight on your shoulders and deal with it, as uncomfortable as it may be. It can be tough to look guys in the eyes and do all those things, but you have to be able to do it in tough times.
As a starting quarterback, how do you, I guess, give them faith or hope or whatever going forward after a couple performances like this?
Yeah, well, you eventually have to turn it and go out there and play well. And like I said earlier, the only way you can do that is keep your head up, high and go out there and attack the week just like you have been doing, and don't change, don't blink. Throughout the week, that may not be enough, but eventually, like I said, you have to go out there and you have to play well and prove that we can, play well enough to win football games.
AD had the best game of his career. How did you guys use him more in this game as opposed to all the other games?
I think he probably had a lot more snaps and, was in position to kind of, come up big when he needed to, and he did a good job. He looked comfortable out there, caught the ball well, did a lot of good things. So it's unfortunate that it comes in a game like this where you can't feel as good about it as you want to, but he did a great job.
Throughout your career, has there been any common things you've leaned into to kind of get out of these ruts?
Whew. Listen, there's obviously times where I've gone through it, and, teams go through it. And like I said, I think the work week is set up so that you can kind of get it out of your system early on in the week. And then you kind of have to weather the storm. There's going to be that little thought in the back of all of our heads, until we get to play again. Kind of similar to how it was this week. And you just have to go to work and immerse yourself in that and distract yourself from all the outside noise by just putting your head down and doing what you know how to do.
So that's Joe Flacco reacting to the Colts' 30-20 loss to the Buffalo Bills at home at Lucas Oil Stadium. The Boo Birds coming out a little bit for the Colts, from Colts fans in that game. Pretty understandable from just the constant turnovers that we saw in this one. All right. So again, the Colts 4-6 on the season. Still, I mean, realistically speaking, still in the, I guess technically speaking, still in the playoff hunt. We're still early here. This was a Week 10 game. There's still a few more games left to play, and the Colts have some winnable ones in there. So, they might be able to still get there because the rest of the AFC that is vying for that last playoff spot is not particularly strong right now. So there is opportunity here. I'm just not sure that I have enough belief right now in what I've seen from this football team to think they're going to be able to get there. But we'll see. And, they'll have a chance next week. This has not been a very good New York Jets team. I think universally they've been a disappointment, but it is a good quarterback in Aaron Rodgers, or an experienced quarterback in Aaron Rodgers, who can pick apart a defense if you give him time. So we'll see how the Colts pass rush can do against that. That was a game that was originally a Sunday night football game, but I think after watching the Colts play the Vikings in primetime last week, the league decided maybe we should not have that game there. And the Jets have not been all that impressive this season either. So that game got moved from the Sunday night game into a 1 o'clock game. It'll be on CBS 4. Mike and Dave and I will have a preview of that game coming up later in this week's preview podcast. For now, you're listening to the Colts Blue Zone podcast. Thanks for listening.